This is 96.9 FM, KMRD-LP, Madrid, New Mexico, and this is going to be the record's shortest intro by me, Jules, for the moment. Thank you, Clinton. Thank you, Interlude. Take care. So, this is not intending to be a long intro because, as previously announced, this is a special exhibition. I don't know what word was about to come out of my mouth, as usual. What? I didn't say that. Anyway, show, Metaphysical Biscuit. And Sunday at 3 o'clock means the good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, etc., so forth and so on. It is time for Hello Sunday Fun Day! Metaphysical Biscuit, Domingo Chico and the Rhythm Threes and El Ritmo de los Tres. Usually there's some sort of rant or whatever nonsense out of my mouth, but this is not usual. We have a very special guest who's in New York who's going to zoom in live. This is the first time I've used this laptop. I hope I've covered all the bases, got things working. It sounds like step one is, which is I'm here. Step two is we're going to hear a song that we've heard. I coordinated with JT Curtis, and I have been saying for some years that we might hopefully have him on, and now it's a reality, I think. He's over there in New York waiting, I think. Well, that I don't think. The only thing at this point is if I mess up. So don't think me. I'm Jules. This is 96.9 FM, KMRD-LP, Madrid, New Mexico, on this 8th of December in the year 2024 of Someone's Lord. And we're going to start off with a song that we have heard, but not as recently as some of the others from the album, Elements. And then we're going to, I'm going to speak for a second as I then go to something special on vinyl is the plan, unless it changes in the next few minutes. But first, here is JT Curtis's, who you're going to hear from for as long as he's willing on the East Coast to stay with us shortly in this show. You and Only You, video and track from his album Elements. And that is all I'm going to say for the moment. Thank you for listening. If you're hearing this, I love you. And let's check out this tune, and then I got some other stuff to do, and then I'll be back. Okay. Thank you. Aha! User error. That's okay. Okay, I'm going to start that over, but that seems like other than the volume went back down, we're good. So here we go again. Sorry about that. Again, Metaphysical Biscuit, JT Curtis, You and Only You, which also has a wonderful video. I'm sure we'll hear about that and more when we get him connected. But first, that song. And You and Only You, JT Curtis, from his album Elements, re-released just now on beautiful vinyl and music. You and Only You, JT Curtis track. And so now from the vinyl, which let me finish talking before I go over here. I don't do much, as you know, so at home I do. But anyway, this is a very special vinyl, which will be seen on the Zoom, which if JT approves after we do the chat after this song, which is a longer track as I get him settled or connected. Anyway, Elements, the first track from his album on vinyl. And I was just going to joke if I mess up the record here when I hit play in 3 seconds or whatever, maybe he'll be like, you suck, and I'll send you a new one. But no, anyway. So let's see. I think that goes up here. And let's see if I know what I'm doing at all. Here we go. This is from JT Curtis' album, playing here on 96.9 FM on Metaphysical Biscuit by Jules on the vinyl that just came out. Fresh copy signed, and then as you're enjoying track one called Elements from Elements, remastered and re-released, then I will be connecting to Mr. J.G. Curtis, and we'll have a chat. So here, hopefully, we go. Almost. I mean, if it happened without any issue, it wouldn't be me. Ha! Come on. What'd you do, Josie? You, me, Dupree. I got it. Here we go. Ready? Trying again. Here we go. Woo! Track one. No skips, maybe. Oh, except for that one. Stop that. And what else am I doing wrong? Uh-oh. Aha! Okay, so he's gonna start it over. I think I got it now. Oh! I told you. That's okay. Ready? Now we got it. That's called a learning curve. Thank you. Enjoy Elements. And then Jules will be back with J.T. Curtis. Now what did I do? It was playing. I heard a scratch. Aha! Shh. All right. And are you still hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, except for not through there. All right. What happened there? Should be through the. Okay. Why isn't the Zoom? That's safe. All right. Hang on. And this is 96.9 FM, KMRD-LP, Madrid, New Mexico. That was Elements from Elements. And let me just see. JT.
Hello.
Yeah, hang on. For some reason, though the track played fine, maybe Zoom. Try that again. Sorry.
Hello. How are you all doing?
I think you're still through the computer. So let me get you. I think all I need to do is go into Zoom settings, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. Headphones. Here we go. This should do it. Click. All right. Did I get it?
I'm not sure.
Yes. I hear you in the headphones now. All right.
All right.
Cool. Thank you. Well, now we are here with JT Curtis live virtually in New York. Thank you, JT. Welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jules.
Thank you so much. It's been a few, as they say in the South, years in the making, and I'd say good timing, particularly since that's a very new vinyl that they just heard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the way to listen to music these days. Not all that fancy digital, stuff.
Acronym, is that an acronym? Whatever they're called that keep changing to.
Exactly.
There was only one file kind with Napster days, I think.
The Napster days.
All right. So it is common to get right into things, but let's do a little intro. They have heard your music and about you a bit, including from years ago, the History of Rock series. This is 96.9 FM, KMRD-LP, Madrid, New Mexico. A little bit more than 30 minutes into our 3 hours together, whatever time zone you're in of Metaphysical Biscuit. Hello, Sunday Fun Day, Domingo Chico and the Rhythm of Threes, and JT Curtis. Thank you. So they heard your new song digitally, file, You and Only You, which they'd heard probably a month or two when it came out, and new for me, and a little bit of the tech hiccup as to why I don't play records too often. I apologize.
It's all good.
Yeah, but it sounded cool.
Yeah, no, it's obviously I know playing records on the air can be a little jittery sometimes, but thanks for playing it. I'm glad it got a nice spin. I'm definitely pushing getting people to buy the album on vinyl, and it's interesting. I kind of avoided putting it on streaming for a little while because I was being a purist about it, and then finally I was just like, why are you doing that? Why don't you just put it on streaming if people want to hear it? So,
Well, a little wait was worth it. Let some people think, let me buy that. And then no one's going to regret it when they get it. If I could show right now, which I am in the Zoom, JT can see, what you all cannot yet, is that I'm sort of showing and pointing to the beautiful vinyl, which is also behind him in New York in his studio. Yes, he's pointing too now, kids.
That's right.
Yes. Meanwhile, and it is a yin yang, right? Tell them about it. Your album.
Yeah.
How'd you come up with it?
Well, interesting enough, the piece actually originated out of watching the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, a cartoon show from Nickelodeon, which is fantastic. And in the beginning of the show, they say water, earth, fire, air, and hence why the pieces go in that order. You've got at the beginning, the first piece is yin and yang, and then water, and then earth, and then fire and air was the last thing you heard. And it also has samples poetry from my father, Jay Curtis, who was battling ALS when he was writing his poetry book, In and Out of Dreaming. So, in many ways, the piece is, well, not in many ways, it really is just dedicated to him. You hear him reciting his poetry throughout it. So,
I'm glad you said he was going to come up, your father, for reasons we'll leave for a minute, but I didn't necessarily know that. I did know about the poetry book. In fact, is that acquirable?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. And I know at least some of the proceeds go to ALS research. So, but yeah, he has 2 books. If you go to Jay Curtis, In and Out of Dreaming.
Is that that's J-A-Y, right? Sorry.
Yep, J-A-Y.
Just to clear. Since you're
Yep,
JT.
it is. That's right. I think you can get it on Kindle as well. And then he has another book called Flaws in the Road.
And what's that one?
Well, Flaws in the Road, In and Out of Dreaming was basically, because I remember this very clearly, he was basically documenting his battle with ALS to when he was diagnosed to pretty much until he passed, for the most part. And Flaws in the Road included a lot of older poems that he had over the years, because he's been writing poems pretty much his whole life. Probably wrote some poems when he was at Woodstock and stuff like that. So,
right. Which now a good little leaking segue into your History of Rock series that he plays that character. I would imagine, besides people you kindly have listening to this, folks from whether I said it or just found it have stumbled upon or watched that series more dedicatedly. So in case anyone listening hadn't connected, the voice you're hearing from New York talking to me, Jules, is J.T. Curtis, who, amongst other things, is known for the music you heard and the History of Rock series.
That's right. I should also mention about my voice. I've got some kind of cold or something, so if it sounds like I'm possessed by the devil, then you'll know why.
It's not what's her name? Yeah, from Exorcist. Yeah. I don't know her name actually.
Oh, The Exorcist. I would quote The Exorcist, but we're on the radio.
That's right. There isn't much in that movie that we can.
That's right.
Yeah. So with Element, the reason why I said we'll segue into that is because I did want to ask you. You were talking about the yin and yang and the elements on the track and all that, and when did you first create that music? Because this is a re-release, correct?
Yeah. I'll tell you exactly. It was basically all of 2019. Like, we had been working on it. Like, we played it live maybe once or twice, something like that. But basically at the end of 2018, my father died in January of 2018. I'm actually going to be talking about this a little bit in the History of Rock 2010s. And I honestly went through a really, really rough year, and have since come to terms with the fact that it was grief that brought on some PTSD, and a lot of, just anxiety, a lot of bad things that were going on. So I kind of said to myself, you know what, I got to channel all of this into something. And I had the piece Elements that I'd been working on. I said, you know what, I'm just going to spend a year and I'm just going to record it, release it, and make the video for it. I went to Pompeii in order to do that, the famous place where Pink Floyd played their show. San Diego, where my dad was in his final year. And here. So it was released at the end of 2019. And I had planned on possibly putting it on vinyl, but then we had a pandemic, and we had a couple of lost years, and getting the vinyl made was a bit of a headache. But I won't get into that right now. But the good people at Gotta Groove, they put the work in, and I now have records for sale, as we can see behind Jules's beautiful. There it is. Jules is now holding up the vinyl with the yin and yang symbol in the middle.
Which I also flipped for future playing, probably.
Exactly.
Future today. Oh, hey. That was
Hi.
That was the program director and founder of the station that shut the little door here because she just came in.
Hello.
Yes. She wouldn't have heard that, but that's okay. I will toss in a little joke that you probably don't know. I have a cat. Well, I had two. Stella, which is the same name as that human, and I have to clarify sometimes, particularly speaking of language on air. I'll air a track and I'll meow out instead of bleep ahead of time, and there's been times where I've been doing that, and then I'll say on air, and it was really driving Stella. I have to remember to say the cat nuts, particularly things like jumping on my head. But
Understood.
yeah, actually, and funny is I ran into another DJ yesterday, and saw a message from the human Stella and said, "Hey, guess who just wrote?" And they thought it ended up in a conversation about cats texting.
Oof. They tend to do that, you know?
Yeah. So do you have a random question, unplanned? Do you have furry creatures in your apartment there or whatever?
I am unfortunately allergic to cats. And every time I tell cat lovers that, they kind of step away from me and want nothing to do with me. I've always wanted a dog, but I live in a New York apartment, and we lived in apartments while I was growing up. So never got to have a little fluffy dog or a ferocious dog, whichever came first. And but nope, I had a fish one time. I had a goldfish, and then he died.
Oh, well, actually, that's part of why that question was interesting to me. If no one else is knowing that you live in New York, is people elsewhere tend to have furry creatures. Things around here jump around. So since you brought up goldfish, why not jump into as I've said in previous weeks and not yet today, but most people probably are somewhat aware that amongst the things you do that I didn't mention yet today is your ranking system, and that includes a goldfish, right?
Yeah. It was interesting because I realized I was going to have to rank albums. I'm like, well, I'm going to do a Siskel and Ebert thumbs up, thumbs down thing, maybe a thumbs sideways. And I was like, yeah, but I kind of want my own identifiable ranking system. And Goldfish were already established in History of Rock, which I don't know a thing. I think they were just on the table, and Nick just kind of said in a one-off joke, like, I said, how do you keep getting into my apartment? He goes, well, funny that you should ask. And the answer is, I'm going to steal your goldfish. Bye. and it just stuck. So Goldfish have been a mainstay in the History of Rock series. And it's...
So what is a goldfish? Let them know what if they haven't seen your videos. What's a goldfish?
So when I'm ranking records, like in my Pink Floyd album review series, my George Harrison album review series, if an album gets a goldfish, that means I recommend you buy it on vinyl. I also have this thing called a spotted fish, which is kind of like my version of a thumb sideways, which means, you know what, why don't you stream this first? And if you like it, you can buy it on vinyl, but stream it first and see if you like it. And if not, you don't need to buy it on vinyl. And then there's a bad fish, which means you don't need to listen to this album. It's not a good album, but it might still have good songs on it. There's what's a good example? Oh, I reviewed a George Harrison album called Somewhere in England. Now it has a fantastic song called All Those Years Ago, which George wrote for John Lennon. And I know today is the unfortunate anniversary of his the day he was killed. And I will not mention the assassin's name because I don't want to give him the infamy. It's a beautiful song, but the rest of the album had a lot of problems, and he was dealing with the record company. So it is a bad fish album, but it just happens to have one really good song on it. So, and that's All Those Years Ago.
You and I are both, well, I don't mean to speak for you, but from having been a fan of your content, we're both George fans, and so are a lot of the listeners of Metaphysical Biscuit here on 96.9 FM.
That's right. I played him actually on Broadway. So
Thank you. Yes, I was aware of that, but that's a good segue too. So when was that? What was the name of that show and when?
The show was called Let It Be. It was on Broadway in 2013, which is now a long time ago. All You Need Is Love. I love it.
I'm showing my hat, by the way. Sorry.
and yeah, it was a great experience. And then we went on tour for years. It's because I was talking to you while Elements was playing. I've been through a lot of these cities while I was on tour with Let It Be. So I can't remember where we went in New Mexico, and I apologize.
It was
New
probably
Mexico.
Albuquerque.
I don't think it wasn't Albuquerque.
Oh, it wasn't
but,
the city? Okay.
I'm not sure, but
Huh.
I don't know. I know we were in Dallas for I think 3 weeks, and then we made our way over to Monterey. So I think we passed through, but I don't remember.
Well, Albuquerque
Anyway.
is the only really big city, so you would know. Although Las Cruces or Santa Fe could have been, but I don't think so. I would have, unless you were at the Lenzig. Anyway, interesting.
Yeah.
We'll
I
figure-
don't know names.
No, and I can't believe you don't live. We don't know. Well, not fair for me because I'm from the East Coast, but they don't know a lot of that stuff.
Right.
If we started talking about places, anyways.
Right. Where in the East Coast are you again?
I grew up in Baltimore.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't lived there since the last century, which I like to say because it sounds ridiculous. Though I was just there because my mom is still there, and then my brother's family, who I just saw, they live in Montclair, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Montclair, New Jersey? Or?
Yeah. So I was near you.
I'm from there.
That's where you're from?
Yeah.
Okay. So Heller Drive. Have you heard of that one?
What's that?
Heller Drive. I know it's big, but
Well, the funny thing is, I'm from Montclair, New Jersey, but I lived there when I was very young
it's
and
not a
didn't
big
know
street.
anything.
And I couldn't give you other. They're near Morristown. Is that?
Yeah, and Verona,
Right.
and a lot of places like that. Hello, anybody listening from Verona? Because I know people from Verona stalk me.
Is that right? Any that are actually from medieval times? Shakespeare.
Yeah. Yes, they and they dress in medieval, and they carry around a lance,
Right.
and so
Speaking of
you know.
improv and poetry.
yeah, there's Sir Lancelot.
Whoa.
Yes, there you go.
Johnny.
Sir Lancelot the brave, Sir Galahad the pure, Sir Robin the not quite as brave as Sir Lancelot, and the Sir not appearing in this film.
That was very good, Eric. There, see, I was egging you-
Normally, I would do a proper John Cleese impression, but like I said, voice not
Voice.
quite there.
If I knew the line offhand, I would do it, but I don't. So we'll leave that one. But maybe they'll come back up. And let's see. It doesn't. Metaphysical Biscuit, by the way, JT has probably not heard me say this. Is the implication whether I'm here alone or with a guest, as I am now, JT Curtis? As I joke, if I don't have a guest, whether whoever's talking or the voices in my head have another thought, go ahead and roll with that thought and don't try to get back to where you were, because you never will. And if you don't try, you usually do. But the idea of jumping around in conversations, it's been 9.5 years of me doing this. I have some loyal listeners, so somebody must appreciate it.
Right, we have encountered a metaphysical biscuit.
I love it.
I don't know why I went into Shatner there for a minute.
I liked it.
just-
Yeah, that was at 3:51 because I was thinking I should have that recorded, but I will. That was good. I've been Shatnered. I think that's a first.
That's right. Captain's log, stardate. I don't know what the star dates are because I'm not enough of a Trekkie. We have encountered the metaphysical biscuit. We have encountered a man named Jules, and we are going to find out what it means.
Very logical, Captain.
Thank you, Mr. Spock.
I'm giving it all she's got. Everybody knows that one.
Well, damn it, man! I can go on with this for a while.
No, you could or couldn't.
I could.
Oh,
yeah,
you
yeah.
could.
I used to do this whole thing where like in a comedy bit where I'd do Kirk and Sulu. I'm showing what a big nerd I am. Where, excuse me,
You're in good
Kirk could be like,
company.
Mr. Sulu, what is our current position? I don't know, Captain. Perhaps if you got off of your large posterior and looked at a viewing screen, you would know our current trajectory.
Very good, Sulu. That's impressive.
Yeah, I love me some George Takei. So
He's great. What a character. Who knew?
yeah,
I'd say random thought, but that's one upside of the internet is, getting to know someone like George Takei who people might not have. You know what I mean?
Well, I think people came to know him really well because of the Howard Stern show. So
Right. Speaking of DJs.
well, one of my favorite moments, I don't know if you're a Stern fan or not, but back in the day, so Sulu, George Takei had put out a book, and all Howard wanted to talk about was all him, bad mouthing Shatner. But he also told this incredible story about how he grew up in a Japanese internment camp because his ancestry was Japanese, and at the time we were at war with them. And then in one of our nation's great failures, we rounded up Japanese Americans and put them in internment camps. And he said, he actually grew up in one of those camps. And Howard being Howard, he's just like, well, yeah, but, the Japanese attacked us. They were very dangerous. And, we had to put them away. And George Takei goes, well, Howard, you're quite dangerous, but we don't put you away.
They tried.
That's so good.
That's a great response and a great impersonation. That's very good, JT. I'm not. I think I may never try to impersonate Takei now because you nailed it, and I don't need to.
Well, do it anyway. It's great.
Well,
but love you, George. So
yeah. Well, to contextualize that a little bit, and not only you probably don't know what I'm about to say. Some of the listeners haven't really heard this that don't live in New Mexico. In Santa Fe, not Madrid, I used to live years ago at a place that was a Japanese internment camp. It's gone.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, and Santa Fe was one of them. Not as well known as
Yeah, I know there was one in California.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where George was, but yeah, wow.
I think it was because of Los Alamos as to why it was, which is not far from here, obviously, or there, whatever. We're here.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's up there. Los Alamos is up that way. I'm pointing. Santa Fe is that way.
Right.
And then what was the other thing? The documentary about him, To Be Takei, is that what it's called? I think, if you know.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. No.
Oh yeah, it's a few years old. Such that what I was going to say is that when I did work at the Jean Cocteau Cinema that was reopened by one of our well-known residents in Santa Fe, George R.R. Martin, I call Railroad. And then later he did buy a railroad, as it turned out. He bought a train.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when you have that much money, I think it's an insane amount of money just to keep it in working order, like sitting there. So it had been not. But musicians actually play on it, and tourists more than locals. It's kind of cool, particularly.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's good because the musicians get paid, which isn't as common as it ought to be in New Mexico.
Wait. Musicians can get paid?
Not often.
When did that start happening?
You got to be on the Dragon train. And he also had, when he bought, it was an old train, obviously. Santa Fe, I'm sure you would probably be aware, has a train history, if nothing else.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was an old train that and somebody who had painted on the side of the building some years earlier. I don't know that it was the same person, it doesn't matter, but he got an artist. When I first saw the train, it had been a while. I didn't see it. I was like, wow, that is pretty cool. Like,
yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind, I just wanted to go fill up my water. Like I said, I'm, just kind of getting over this bug, or whatever. So just want to fill up some water.
I don't, and we're actually right at the top of the hour. So what I can do is, should I play the first track on the other side of the album? Do the station?
Well, the first track was You and Only You. So if you
Oh,
want to play one of the other ones, digitally or record, either way.
as long as you don't
So
mind if I have to tweak the record, I'll do the record again.
yeah, yeah, do your thing.
Okay.
Um, you know what would be if is it okay if I request one or
Yeah, of course.
the third one people like a lot. It's called Bootleg Gasoline.
Right. One, two, three, and there's only four, correct?
Yes, there's the songs are in this order. Number one, You and Only You. Number two, Never Let the Bastards Grind You Down. Number three, Bootleg Gasoline. Number four, Home Last Stand. I don't know why I'm talking like this.
I was going to say, have you said this before? Okay, well, and now is within 3 minutes of the top of the hour. So this is 96.9 FM, KMRD-LP, Madrid, Mexico. We'll get you doing that later. And we're going to have push the right button here, a break for Bootleg Gasoline from the record player by JT Curtis, and then be back with JT Curtis to chat more.
Sweetness.
Thank you. All right. Audio, mics off, music, and we'll be back.
Cool.
All right. That's it, right? Other than outro, I don't know if there's a technical name for that part, but I always try to not cut off. Last week in particular, where I wasn't talking much because of stuff and fatigue and depression. But anyway, letting that everything pull out. And there was a George Harrison track where it had about 30 seconds of outro, but something came on. Anyway, is there another term for outro than outro?
I guess yeah, that's pretty. There's a little bit of a crossfade between those two songs.
Yeah, you're undulating one album concept. You're very conceptual, aren't you?
Yeah. Though it's interesting. Bootleg Gasoline wasn't necessarily written for Element. The song that just played wasn't necessarily made for the Elements concept. It just the interesting thing that happened, so we had Elements, the piece, and I wanted it to be on vinyl. And Todd Meredith, who sings part of the song we just heard, we were talking about it and deciding, well, what's going to be on the B side? And we knew that we were going to include You and Only You because that was the latest single we just had. And Never Let the Bastards Grind You Down because that was also somewhat new. And I wanted to include Home Last Stand because that sort of tied into Elements. So, and we kept thinking, what's the fourth one going to be? And I think we thought I have a song called Sweet Raven. Some friends were like, oh, you should put that one on. I was like, I don't know about that one because I felt like we need a silly song. You know, there's a lot of really heavy stuff happening in Elements and, Never Let the Bastards Grind You Down and Home. So I'm like, Bootleg Gasoline, it's a silly song. So let's have some silliness just to kind of break up, the heavy themes of the record.
And I've caught that listening to it. And I think I heard that. I could look at the notes, but I don't think it's important right now. And speaking of silly and enjoying, what they don't know is that but what you don't know is that I was dancing before you came back, and then we were both doing goofy dance moves that they can't see at the moment.
Exactly.
It's sort of inevitable.
What would listening to music be like without goofy dance moves?
Exactly. Fact.
That's why disco was invented. So
fact. Yeah. Yeah. And there are certainly some shows where I'm over here, JT can see that I'm dancing in my chair, which I have said to people, going back to some of the music I grew up on, 90s hip hop, when I play some of that, I'm like, I will be dancing in my chair for the next 4 minutes.
Nice.
Encouraging listeners to do their thing. And I'm sure they were.
It's funny when people say to me like, oh, do you listen to hip hop as well? And I'm like, well, it's funny. My hip hop tastes are basically the same as my rock tastes. Like I'm old school. So so 90s hip hop. Yeah, I'm into, all this new stuff, all these young whippersnappers,
Yeah.
them kids and their music. Yeah.
Well, I'll bring this up a little bit. Again, Metaphysical Biscuit being talk about whatever we'll get there. But it's an interesting, as you're not only an avid music lover and historian, you're also a music creator. Anyways, is that, I feel like now none of us were born when country went radio, and it's a little different because it was radio, but there's an inevitability in country pop radio was what I'm getting at again. When they discover something can make money, whoever they are, and then they start doing things like auto tuning, that's where it ruins. I mean, I've literally had people where I've been like, oh, you don't like hip hop? Well, at least listen to what Chuck D's saying in this, or Tribe, this stuff. Tell me you don't like the content, and I don't like Bob Dylan is what I'm going to tell you. If you don't have to like the music of that stuff. If I get that some people it's going to be distant or not get why sampling worked. Yeah.
Yeah, I met Chuck D once, actually. I backed him up at an event. He just came on, and we kind of played some music while he came on and did a speech. Very, very, very nice guy, very smart guy. I mean, and you listen back to Take a Nation and Millions to Hold Us Back, and Bring the Noise, and Don't Believe the Hype and everything. It's like, yeah, it's like, I said this in the History of Rock the 1980s. Like, it felt like hip hop was taking the mantle of what rock and roll should have been, because at that point, what was mainstream rock and roll was Poison, and I'm sorry if you're a Poison fan, anybody listening. But hey, I grew up with the 90s grunge movement, and they were, we didn't like, Motley Crue and Poison and all those bands. So it felt like, as much as they dismissed, hip hop is not music and stuff like that, you really listen to that. Like, even going back to Grandmaster Flash, it's like, yeah, man, this is the music that feels like it's saying something.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get back? And then finally in the 90s, we kind of got back to that. But for a while, it was like, I'll listen to some Public Enemy with you one day. I'm down for it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I all those bands you mentioned, I honestly don't even really know the difference, because I went to Baltimore's ranked the worst public school system in the country. I went to the third oldest public school and the best, but it was almost all African American. I went 2 summers ago to my 30th high school reunion. I wouldn't have gone if my mom wasn't still there, but for the main reason being knowing that I would be the only, I'm going to point to my skin, the only person with white skin there, and I was. And somebody just literally this week liked one of those photos from 2 years ago, and all of a sudden 30 people, because they, how that works. But anyway, it was literally me and 150 kids that I grew up with that I hadn't seen for 30 years. So I didn't really know that kind of music from the 80s and 90s that was on the radio.
Right.
Interesting, Chuck D. And the upsides of social media is that there's one thing that's cool when an artist gives you a heart, but in the last few weeks, Chuck D, and that's why I was telling you, JT, this means a lot to me, this kind of interaction, so thank you again. But is that Chuck D actually responded to some stuff, and I've seen him post where he said that he makes an intention. I don't know if you probably have too much to do than waste time on Instagram. Good for you. But anyway, where he said that he likes to engage with people. And he did, and he ends up name-checking the station and thanking me, because I had been, particularly since the election, airing more and more. Because that music and Fugazi that I grew up on, if you know them as much, because of being in D.C., they didn't want to be more known. But anyways, in the month since that election thing, that we don't need to talk about otherwise.
Yes.
No, but my first show in a lot of DJs was like, it was like fired up. But anyways, what I had been saying was that the current affairs were making, as you kind of were just insinuating, or whatever the verb is, made it much more relevant again.
Yeah.
I mean, the content of Public Enemy, minus a few references, is the same from 80s and 90s now.
Oh, yeah.
It's so relevant, sadly. But yeah, he's actually, I don't know if you know, he does graphic art. He's got a couple. He's putting out another one, which is cool. So anyway, yeah, that's cool that you got to do something with him.
He was really cool. I'm, and I've always. There's a great. I remember a quote from him saying, one of the things or advice he always had to rappers is make sure that you can do your verses live, like you can do them live without interruptions. 'Cause I do feel, I have to kind of check. I'm obviously not completely well versed with hip hop, but one thing I do feel that kind of happened with technology and and this is across the board with pop and rock and R&B, everything, is that technology kind of took some of the rawness out of a lot of the harder edge stuff that we really grew up. And once you got, I've also said, when it went commercial, the record companies are like, look, you can't be putting out a song called F the Police, because we got to sell Pepsi Cola. So none of that. And it, kind of like I said, kind of took some of the rawness out. But, we've still got like Kendrick Lamar and some guys that are, doing their thing. So,
Yeah,
I think
I'm with you.
You got to look for it.
Well, and it's actually they've heard this, but not last week, so that's okay. And I wasn't even on 2 weeks ago. And it's not always the same people listening. Is there an older PBS doc that's about how lawyers basically, I don't want to say killed because that's an opinion, but changed is not an opinion. Hip hop that started, and then in recent years, Chuck D put out, like in the last couple of years, the history of hip hop 50th, which was last year.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing. I mean, it's cool that New York Times and the mainstream articles even acknowledged it, but the best thing was Chuck D led 4-part or whatever PBS series, and they just go deep, deep, deep. The others don't really touch on the stuff that we're talking about mostly. But that anyway, the sampling, and it was the Tribe Called Quest album, literally. The Midnight Marauders that has so many samples. They put it out to the credit of, because it was actually last year that, thanks to mismanagement from Tommy Boy Record, not to mention nobody knowing that this internet thing was going to happen in the 80s and 90s, none of De La Soul's catalog was legally available until last year. And one of the main De La guys died right before it got re-released. Yeah. No, but anyway, not to be a bummer, but anyways, how much it changed, and what Chuck D says in the doc and others, Karis, one other people that were there, Bambata, is what it was is they had no instruments. I mean, Chuck D is a little more middle class, but he acknowledges that. But in the late 70s and 80s, right, in New York, where they started this thing with these, they had turntables and they had their parents' records, which you've mentioned being influenced by, right? So
yeah. Well, and it was the other thing is that I always go, the reason I like a lot of older hip hop is because I know we're getting off track of the history of rock and stuff like that. But one of the reasons I really like that era is because all those guys grew up with R&B. So they're still approaching it like R&B. And then at a certain point, you kind of start realizing, they actually grew up with pop music. So it's kind of just a different approach. And I personally, I always feel like blues and R&B is the backbone of rock and roll and hip hop and just, a lot of the great music. And to me, the further you get away from that, the less, maybe soul isn't the word I want to use, but it kind of loses some of that human element that I think.
Soul, humanity.
Yeah. That, because I still have arguments with people online who will go on History of Rock 50s and they'll just be like, this is the, it's like, look, rock and roll started from blues artists. Like that's where it started. Yes, there was a country element as well, very important country element, but they're all playing blues songs. Jailhouse Rock is a blues song. Johnny Be Good is a blues song. They're all blues songs. Blue Suede Shoes. It's called Blue Suede Shoes.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and one name that I'm going to say it without the rest of it first, intentionally. Little Richard.
Oh, well. There's a lot of discussion about what's the first rock and roll song, and we talked about this in the history of rock and roll. And there's a lot of people that came beforehand. I know a lot of people cite Sister Rosetta Tharpe right now, who's not in my 50s video, and people get on me for it all the time. But to me, I feel like Little Richard, Tutti Frutti comes down. It's like, that is so unmistakably rock and roll. Just everything about it is rock and roll.
Yeah.
Maybelline by Chuck Berry as well. It's like, 1955, both of them. It's like, yeah, we're in it now. We're definitely in it. So,
But who's the name, particularly the Brits, but of all the greats from the 60s, the bands that you profile and would know a lot more than me, what's the one name they all mention?
the Beatles?
No. Well, them too. I already said it. They all mention Little Richard as the guy.
Yeah.
They all
Absolutely.
Mick, that right? Don't they all? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Little Richard. The funny thing is, you listen like one of the between Little Richard and Chuck Berry, because I'm the next JTC playlist I'm going to do is Chuck Berry. But listening to both of them, it's like
I think that was my vote. Sorry.
Oh, was that your vote? What was your vote again?
It was what you just said. Chuck Berry for your next.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Jules is a patron, dear listeners. So sorry for the plug.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to
that
stuff.
Little Richard is, fantastic. And and personality galore. He's so much fun to watch in interviews and just what an amazing human being. Just
and
still
performer
missed.
and entity. Yeah. In fact, I just remembered, probably from yesterday or 2 days ago, but time is so weird these years and weeks. But anyway, going down the rabbit hole of re-listening to some of your videos to get in the mindset for this right now. Chat here with JT Curtis, who's in New York, and Jules here in Madrid. This is 96.9 FM, KMRD, Madrid, New Mexico, on this 8th of December in the year 2024 of Someone's Lord, about an hour and 15.
Someone's Lord.
Someone's Lord. Yeah.
I like that.
Please borrow that. I think it should be used more. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I don't know that either of us are technically religious, but it's the year 5,000 something in several cultures, for one thing.
Exactly.
Which is a little closer to accurate.
I'm pretty agnostic, so
Yeah. I don't know about that Jesus dude.
Which is not the same thing as atheist. So everybody, put your pitchchforks down.
That's
all
right.
So.
But it's not. The word. I always got confused on the terminology because agnostic it doesn't sound nice at all. But it's actually kind of the more.
It's that G, agnostic. It's ag.
Yeah. And there was the band, the 80s punk band, Agnostic Front. So
Well, if you would like to know the difference between the two terms, an atheist is someone who does not believe in God. An agnostic is somebody who believes that there's the possibility that there could be a God, but does not believe that it could be known.
I don't know.
This has been Fun Facts with JT Curtis. Now we know, and knowing is half the battle.
And Jules will add that I feel like I don't really know anything, which is a liberating concept, really. I don't know, but let's find out, or let's yap about it for a little bit, or hear the song, all that stuff. Chuck D, real quick, to wrap that thread up for me, is actually the last thing I saw before the shutdown in Santa Fe, of all things that are kind of New Yorkish, no offense, man. White walled art center downtown was Chuck D and Rakim. They scored the two of them, and it was like, if it wasn't March, it was late February of 2020, and they did a talk, and then a local DJ got to play for Rakim. Chuck didn't perform, so we all kind of interacted with him a bit too. It's super cool. But they ended up talking about, it was packed, of course, which is great. Well, actually, the drummer, the musician, the name, Brian Hargrove, if you know that name, he played live drums with Public Enemy. He's actually a Santa Fe resident with his family, so that helped.
Oh, all right.
It was a surprising thing for Santa Fe. But anyways, and they're talking about dads, and they end up crying, and 500, whatever number of people, everyone's just in tears. It was a beautiful thing, to be honest. And no one knew that a week or two later, well, not no one, most of us didn't know exactly what was coming. So that sort of added a power to it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Not to talk about that era, but
yeah.
But since Chuck D came up, and I think also I wanted to segue in. I think it's actually kind of cool. Hopefully, some of your folks are listening, and the people are probably going to check out History of Rock that haven't, and we'll give them more details shortly. But that because you don't talk about hip hop too much in your series, so
not a lot. I mean, we touched on it briefly in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and a tiny bit in what'll be the next 2010s. One of the things I did kind of want to shut down is I think there's a misconception that there was a war between rock and roll and hip hop, and I very, very often, like, oh, hip hop killed rock and roll. I'm like, no. Corporate meddling from the music industry killed rock and roll, and pop music killed rock and roll, and now pop music is killing hip hop. So
I totally agree. Yeah, and I think a lot of people just are, they just, again, if they heard some of this stuff, or if they hear it on this show or wherever else they can hear it, the good stuff, De La, the things we know. It's not,
exactly.
They're going to react differently. And when they realize, too, oh, this is the other thought. See, that's Metaphysical Biscuit. As I was thinking earlier, and then we can go. But I also was just saying, and then to that thought, and then you, or whatever, I think it's great that we got to hear you bring up what you don't, is what I was getting at, in the history of rock as much just now. That's a gem. And that a lot of people don't realize, as much as what I was saying earlier from the docs and stuff we know about what they say about their music, starting with having a message is important. So Africa Bambaataa somewhat into the others, that they had the records, they knew them well, and they had something they needed to say at the time. And Blondie's connection is wonderful, right? And
right, yeah.
But anyways, if we get to that, we will. But what I want to say real quick is that the Tribe album and others, if you listen and somebody breaks it down, as my hands are moving to a track level, it is not just two records sampling. They're usually very layered. In fact, the last thing I'll say on that, because I just remembered the De La thing, the reason why they got sued and everything changed with hip hop is of all things, it was the Turtles who were so tiny in the De La Soul 3 Feet High and Rising album that they forgot to tell the record company, because they forgot that it was mixed in there, and the Turtles end up suing, and that's like, come on, guys, because it caused damage. I mean, I get that there was their thing, right? But
and also one of my we brought this up in the 90s episode. One of my all-time favorite quotes is when Vanilla Ice, clearly the greatest hip hopper ever. By the way, I'm being sarcastic, just so everybody realizes that.
I think they
he, of course, famously sampled "Under Pressure" by Queen and David Bowie for "Ice Ice Baby," and he was called out for, like, hey, you sampled "Under Pressure" and you didn't credit David Bowie or Queen. And he said, and his reasoning was like, yeah, but it's not the same song. Theirs is ding, 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 ding. And mine is ding, 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 ding. So it's not the same song.
The only real ding, ding there is whatever he's going by now. Yeah. But that's the thing.
And to his credit, I think he since has come back. It's like, yeah, I was wrong about that. But, it's like, hey, man, just own up to it. Hey, yeah, we use this.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that the good artists absolutely did, and I was thinking a second ago with Tribe is people might say, well, what are they doing with the Velvet Underground? They're just playing that thing. First of all, they acknowledge that. Second of all, it's because of the line, the color girls go do. And third of all, it sounds great. And fourth of all, what I do is I play both in a row. I play Tribe if I'm in the mood to play that song, and then I'll often go into the Velvet Underground. And,
nice.
But Tribe would have acknowledged Vanilla Ice, But anyway, yeah. Well, I think this is a good time to give some specifics on the history of rock. As you mentioned, first of all, your trailer dropped today, right?
Well, it wasn't really a trailer as much as it was an announcement that it is going to be on Patreon tomorrow. We put out like a proper trailer a little bit ago. I don't remember. I'm clearly not very good with remembering things.
What? Huh?
What?
Huh? Who are you?
What do you say? Hey, you know what? I got a little joke for you. So I'm going to say a line, and then you have a line, and your line is going to be, what is it? So I'll say my line, and then you'll say, what is it? We good on this one?
Uh-huh. What is it?
So here's my line.
Oh.
I've been taking a memory elixir.
What is it?
What is what?
What is it?
What is what?
It.
What are you talking about?
It. What is it?
Yeah, I was just saying I was taking a memory elixir.
Who?
What? What are you talking about? Anyway,
No,
that's the joke.
no, we're running with it. I was about to go into the obvious. No, he's on second.
Oh, yes.
Well,
Yes. I'm not, yeah, I'm not asking you who's on second.
no, he's on first.
I'm not asking you who's on first. I don't know.
No, he's on third. Done with no scripts, kids.
Good old Abbott and Costello.
Who?
No. He's on first base.
What is it?
No, that's the guy's name on second base.
Is it?
Yeah. I actually, funny enough,
We could go with that till 6.
and a friend of mine and I did that entire skit in 3rd grade. No joke.
Yeah, I've known most of my whole life. So I'm not a born Jules. Jules works our troupe. We actually, it wasn't really my idea, so I don't mind saying that one of the cleverest skits that we did was because it was so obvious. It was like, how can this not have been done? And I don't think it had of recreating Who's on First, except for Sam Jackson shows up. Say who again? Lots of things that we can't say on air, right?
I was about to say,
yeah.
Yeah. Although you could always do the whenever they would show movies on TV and they would have to like dub them in these ridiculous like snakes on a plane, and you know it's like I have had it with these flippin' snakes on this stupid plane. It's just.
Do you remember when that was out? That they did that thing with the phone call.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
That was a trip. We had way too much fun. I was working at the box office of a theater, a performing arts center, where I ended up getting to meet lots of cool people. But anyways, so we were bored in a little jail cell for hours. Literally, it had bars, and that was a good way to pass the time when there wasn't a phone call. We didn't answer the phone professionally with that, but.
Right.
Anyway, yeah.
But getting back to History of Rock 2010s, it's going to be on Patreon tomorrow, and then it will be on YouTube, hopefully a week later for our it'll be the 10th year anniversary since we started the show.
Right.
So
to get specific, the show that J.T. Curtis here is talking about is called The History of Rock, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you started, as you just said, 10 years ago. And at the beginning of this show, Metaphysical Biscuit, about an hour and ago, after the music by J.T. Curtis, you mentioned right away your father, Jay. So he had directed it with you, right?
Well, he was a director, like legit. Right. He had a show in the early 80s in San Diego, Channel 6, called Disaster Piece Theater. Where they showed the worst movies of all time, and they did commentaries on them. And this was before Mystery Science Theater 3000, way before it.
I love it.
So already he was in it, and then he ended up working with a lot of people at CBS. He was directing promos, so he had a really, really, serious background in video and everything. So when I told him I wanted to do the history of rock, I needed somebody behind the camera, so he kind of got us going for the 50s and 60s video. And as just sort of a one-off joke, we had him come on camera as a bum. We call him the annoying hippie bum. So like Nick
was there, man.
That's right. Nick Petrella, my co-host, he's calling me up. He's like, "Hey, man, I thought this was an episode about the 1950s. Why are you talking about the 40s?" And I'm like, "How'd you get this number? It's a YouTube video. It doesn't matter." And Jay just comes right in. He's like, "Hey, give me that phone. I gotta call my accountant." Right. And he just went on from there. And then the 60s video, I kind of wanted him to talk about his Woodstock story. He was actually at the Woodstock. Mm-hmm. He also saw the Beatles live on the Ed Sullivan Show. He was a fan of Bob Dylan. So I said, well, we've already introduced your character. Let's have you come on as the character. And he came on in character, and to me, he kind of stole the show. I don't know how the fandom feels about it, but
he was great. But it was great. It was a great element and the right amount, probably.
Yeah, and then he got diagnosed with ALS, so before he left to be in California because he was going to be in a wheelchair, and being in a wheelchair is not great if you're in New York. So we filmed some stuff of him for the 70s episode and the 80s episode, and the last shot you see of him in the 80s episode, that's the last thing we filmed together. So yeah, it's
tough. I actually
see now I'm depressed. So
I'll bring it back up. That's my job. That's why I got the big bucks over here. That snorkel was a joke of the character is calling to, like, you're a pizza joint at some point and to get drugs.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. He's just like, I'd like to order a couple of pizzas. Like, he's calling me for no reason. He's like, yeah, I'd like to order a couple of pizzas, some pepperoni, pineapple. How about a little crystal meth? Breaking Bad was big at this point,
right?
Which that Blue Eisenberg stuff.
Breaking Bad's that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they filmed Breaking Bad in Albuquerque, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or,
yeah. It's an odd analogy. Mike Judge and Vince Gilligan, the creator and writer and director often, both lived in one of the big Texas cities somewhat, and lived in Albuquerque, because Mike Judge talks about how, King of the Hill with the accents is nonetheless based off of, in his own words, the lawn care happy people that he knew, if it was Dallas, whatever, and in Albuquerque, those characters. Yeah. And Vince Gilligan lived in New Mexico for a bit before he started doing those shows. And he's actually making a third, no spoilers, because I had a conversation a few weeks ago with someone who was in it. So I'm just speaking a little slowly to make sure what I say is what is coming, not from what he told me yet, as a actor in it a little bit and saw it, because what's public is what I'm getting at. Is I think it's great because they announced that Vince Gilligan was doing a third show. They've both been made here, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and online. And by the way, JT's face was perfect with the online. And I don't know if you saw my comment today. I said, if anyone's messing with you online, I got your back, man, because I'm putting my fist up. But it's ridiculous how people behave in that way. And anyways, enough of that. But people commenting, and I actually, disclosure, had been friends with Giancarlo Esposito, Gustavo Fring for a while. Yeah. Great guy. He goes way back. In fact, we just watched Trading Places with my niece, and he's in the jail cell with Eddie Murphy back in the 80s. He goes way back. He was in Do the Right Thing. Anyway, but I could not agree, other than for pocketbooks and ego, that there should have been a third show from, he hit gold twice as the creator with Better Call Saul and that. And to his credit, and again, what most people, and you would know better than me, in the mainstream world would probably have gone the lame route and done a third spinoff, Safe Choice, like you were saying, but he didn't. So it is released that this series that's coming very soon, again made in Albuquerque, from Vince Gilligan, has nothing to do with Breaking Bad or Saul. So that, I think that's an integrity that is way too rare.
I dig it. Well, hope I get to check it out.
No, it'll be airing. I mean, it would have to really stink for it not, right?
Well, if he's involved, probably will be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem odd, particularly since he isn't doing that thing that I just said, that he would suddenly, fall off. And it does have the actress from, did you watch Better Call Saul?
Yeah.
It has Kim. It has Rhea Shearhorn. She's the star. So anyway. But speaking of integrity, this is JT Curtis here, who
gotta find some integrity.
Integrity.
That's right. My Randy Marsh reference for the day.
There you go. Respect.
Although nobody really likes that era of South Park, the integrity farms.
I was about to go further with it. Oops. I was just going to say respect is integrity.
Combining if Eric Cartman was involved in it, yeah.
Yeah.
Respect my integrity.
Shut up, dude. That's the only South Park. That's all that we get.
Yeah, I was about to say we're on the radio. I don't know if that we can quote anything from South Park.
Not much. I love to karaoke "Lonely Jew" and from that tribe, which I believe your heritage, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I love I love that. I mean that's early South Park. It's
Very
like
early.
season 1.
And
Yeah.
and I've aired it and karaoke'd it. I saw your face about karaoke, but as somebody who isn't a great singer but loves to perform, I love karaoke. For a real musician like you, that's another story.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, people enjoy it. They, you know.
You don't need
love.
karaoke. You made that album. That's amazing. I can't do
Yeah,
that.
I'm not a karaoke guy. Nick does some karaoke. I know he does it sometimes.
I was going to make fun of myself and say I could hardly even hit play on your record, much less create it the way you did.
You're doing fine.
Okay, so I think it's time to let them know a little bit more. You mean, Nick, in the history of rock, you're kind of the straight man, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think my role has kind of changed a little bit because, obviously I'm the straight man when Nick came on and it was just the two of us, and Nick was, you know, the funny guy, you know, because I wanted him to come on because I wanted somebody to basically, you know, sometimes people will say to me, well, why don't you just talk about music? Why do you have to do all these jokes and everything? And I go, well, because it would be boring.
Yeah.
So,
whenever my interest was piqued, sorry to cut you off, that was part of it, was seeing that there was fun involved.
yeah. And Nick is he's very funny, you know, great at improving and stuff like that. And then when my dad came in, my dad is just like, it was amazing. My dad, he wasn't like an actor necessarily, but he was like really good at improv.
Yeah.
And he was fast. Like, you know, there's a moment, this was an outtake where we're talking about, he's getting mad at me because he's telling his Woodstock story and I'm going like, oh yeah. And the Who, they put out Tommy and blah, blah, blah. And he just looks to me and says, I'm sorry, I was there. Were you there? And I go, no, I wasn't there. And he goes, wait, I think I saw you there. You've aged very well. Because, you know, he's really out of it. And Nick, we kept going. That was all the script said, and that we just kept riffing. Mm-hmm. And Nick went, "Were you there?" I say, "I was born in 1985." And without missing a beat, my dad goes, "I had my first hernia in 1985."
I was about to say, no wonder you have such a pretty baby face.
We just fell over laughing because it was like a "Whose line is it anyway" moment. He was just so fast at things like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, actually,
but
you go ahead.
Anyway, so Emily Seibert came on, and Emily is like very, very, very into theater, and she's very up and has a lot of energy and stuff. So that was like, I really had to kind of keep the straight man role because Nick and Emily were just, such big personalities. And then when Emily wasn't around for the 90s episode, Ashley Rose came on. But Ashley, who's a fantastic actor as well, but Ashley was better at like kind of doing the more like deadpan humor. Mm-hmm. So she kind of took the role of the straight man, phrasing, a little more. So in the 90s episode, I kind of was able to be a little sillier, the Beavis and Butthead thing. And in the 2000s episode, I had fun because I sort of exaggerated my PTSD with being a musician in the 2000s. So, Ashley has always said she likes, doing the straight man role because she can kind of like almost think of her like the Elaine of like if we're Seinfeld. So some of her, and it's funny because I've told her this before, some of her energy kind of feels very Julia Louis-Dreyfus-y to me. So
I've noticed that. And actually, I was thinking in my head the last day or two, listening to you and somewhat seated, somewhat walking around. Why I'm saying that, I'm not sure. But so hearing things, and I was thinking also hearing some of the moments you already spotlight of your father that would re-get my attention, having already watched everything I clicked on. I had already I thumbed up things to be nice, and also so I know I've watched it. But anyways,
thank you.
Yes, I would do it anyway, but I do it. That's for me too.
Be sure to subscribe and like this video. It really helps us out with the algorithm because YouTube is an awful, horrible place. Oh wait, I
Wait, that might be on
YouTube
YouTube.
I'm sorry, I'm reading this. YouTube is good. It is not owned by an evil corporation. So you should go on YouTube right now.
It is better than the other ones.
Yeah, they're all terrible.
I mean, something about humans and greed isn't nice. But anyway,
Yeah.
you know what I did just put my hand. Are they still trying that blue sky thing, or did they give up?
Were they trying to what?
That blue sky alternate? Remember? I don't know.
I don't know. For a while there was that other Twitter knockoff, and I joined it, and I never looked at it again.
Is that the
and now
one?
Blisky, whatever it is.
Yeah. The concept is fine, but it's too hard to keep up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, I was never a Twitter guy to begin with, so I never cared about Twitter. And
you're almost a famous person, but Twitter was for famous people. But you're a famous person with integrity.
That's right. If you're gonna go on Twitter, make sure you could bring some integrity.
Ashley is a trip, and she sings, right? I was flashing back. Yeah.
Well, Ashley and I worked together in a couple of bands, Starlight Orchestras. You're welcome, Evan. And so she and I knew each other already. And then when Emily and I guess I'll just say the story because Emily and I, we're fine now, but immediately after we finished shooting the 80s video, we had a really stupid argument over the most meaningless thing ever, like what the order of a set list should be over a show. There was a lot of things going on in our lives, and I take a lot of responsibility for that. So we had a trial separation period, and so I think I asked Ashley, I'm like, hey, do you want to be in it? And she kind of came in at the last minute. So, but she, in the 90s episode, she hit it all like really fast and just hit everything. So in the 2000s episode and some of the other things we did, I think we were able to establish her character a little more. She's a bit of a germaphobe and stuff like that. And the 2000s episode, Emily and I, we kissed and made up, and she was able to come back and
literally.
She was able to come back for a cameo. So in the 2000s episode, she comes. We were still in the middle of the pandemic, so she was out in Florida, and she zoomed in, and so we got to get her into that. So, and love you, Emily.
Yes, we do, in different ways.
Yeah, and it's so weird. For whatever reason, I don't know why I did this. I put out I think I was in a silly mood one day, and I put out a poll of
it's quite silly.
How would you ship our characters? And if you don't know what shipping is, it's how you want relationships in fiction or nerdy culture or something to go. So like, if you ship, like we were talking about Star Trek, if you want to ship Captain Kirk and Uhura or Spock and Uhura, like that's a ship. Or if you wanted to, I don't know, in Star Wars, you want Darth Vader to ship with Grand Moff Tarkin or something like that. And Last Airbender, don't even get me started on that. So I put out a poll like, who do you ship? Like me and Ashley, me and Emily, Nick and Ashley, whatever. And the last one, just as a gag, I put me and Nick, and that won the poll.
Of course, yeah. Is ship somewhat a clean, safe way to reference the Eddie Murphy Star Trek joke that Captain Kirk will ship anyone? Remember that? It wasn't ship. The Captain Kirk, the green bleep was the Eddie Murphy thing. That he's horny.
I don't remember.
Frisky. Is that ship?
I think it can be whatever it wants to be. It can either be, shipping means you want to see them together in a platonic not a platonic relationship, like a, boyfriend and girlfriend thing, or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, partners, or you marriage, or, stipping each other, whatever.
Could just be a night then. Yeah.
Or who knows? I don't need, Listen, I don't judge.
That's right. And there's no need to put labels and define these things.
That's right. And as far as me and Nick are concerned, that what happens between us stays between us.
That stays in the extras.
That stays in the extras. Yeah.
Actually, that was.
Although-
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny because we just did a video on Frank Zappa. This was post that stupid Paul, and in the extras we kind of leaned into it a little bit. We had a little fun with like making fun of it. Anyway, that's all the funny thing. I bring up all these stupid things, but the comments I always get are, "How come you didn't talk about this band?"
The Cure.
Know?
Because you talked about The Cure too much, goth. Anyway.
Well, that was actually a problem. In the 80s video, we totally forgot about The Cure. Just like totally forgot. And when somebody said, "How could you not talk about The Cure?" Me and Nick just went, "Oh my God, how did we forget about The Cure?" So that was totally 100% justified. I'm like, that comment and that criticism is 100% justified. And unfortunately, I had a problem with that video, so I had to re-upload it. So the silver lining was we did get to work on it. And Emily even did a VO and just said, "Oh, and by the way, don't forget The Cure this time."
Right.
So,
I was gonna. It's been in my head, so here it comes for a bit. The difference with I think, right, mostly, or one of the differences rather, with the Patreon videos and what you end up putting on YouTube is because of this copyright stuff, correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, for what it's very complicated, but in the United States, there's this thing called fair use. In England, it's called fair dealing, I think it's called.
Fair
now,
use.
Yeah, and fair use and fair use videos, or fair use with anything. This is like, for example, why someone like Weird Al Yankovic is allowed to do things, and basically what it says is that you are allowed to use copyrighted material for parody purposes, or in our case, educational purposes, as long as it's not commercial. We're not selling them or anything like that. So yeah, technically you're allowed to, but the problem with YouTube is that they've got these AI bots monitoring everything, and they don't know that, hey, this is an educational video. So like, for example, if I say, so in 1957, Elvis Presley put out Jailhouse Rock. Let's hear a little bit of Jailhouse Rock. And I play like 5 seconds of it just so you know what it is, because you need to identify it, because this is an educational video. This is the song. This is education. They don't know that. And if you go, if you dispute it, they don't care. And YouTube's, it's a really, really long, complicated story. So on Patreon, I have a little more freedom to where I can do that. So if you go to the Patreon videos, I'll be able to have like more, specific examples of like, hey, so Pink Floyd on the wall, that one of their biggest songs was Comfortably Numb. Here's a little snippet of David Gilmour playing the solo. So you know what it is, because this is an educational, and it's a review. So, and I know it there is a gray zone there, so I'm not going to 100% make a judgment call on that, but I have talked with a lawyer before, and she said there's absolutely no reason anybody would ever look at this and not see that it's fair use. So, but Google is still going to do what they want. So I had actually a recent thing that happened, because now there's a new thing that Google is doing. In the 50s video, one of the most important things to talk about is segregation, because a lot of the great artists we loved, Little Richard you mentioned, because of segregated radio, they wouldn't play his single, Tutti Frutti. So Pat Boone had to do it, and they'd play his version instead. And I'm talking about segregation in the United States, a lot of horribly racist things that were going on, because it's history and you got to talk about history. Well, YouTube put a little filter on it, and said that they put a little filter on it and said it's there's a problem with it, or like it's sensitive content. And because it was sensitive content, like we're going to demonetize it or whatever. And I'm like, what do you mean it's sensitive content? It's educational content. There wasn't anything terrible in it. But I think maybe there was a word that was said by, in a clip that I had that, is understandably racist, but, that's what happened. So I had to do some maneuvering in that way. But yeah, so that's basically, yes. Oh, I was trying to cover for you. So,
Well, they didn't hear me though, because I didn't have the mic on, but I heard all that. I apologize for that.
oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Yes, we were, Jules was going out to save the world from the aliens. So,
I did. It's New Mexico. I mean, come on.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
So I was covering for him. I was just telling him about
biscuits. No, I did hear you.
Yeah.
I heard you.
Yeah. I was just telling him about the secret to success.
Right, which is what I needed. So I'm not. You caught me lying because I'm a complete failure, and I would have, had I not run off, I would have known how to not be a failure, and now I don't until I play it back.
Exactly. I may have to sign off in maybe like 10 or so.
Okay.
So, but
or if you need to run like I just did, either way, whatever you need to do. So one thing I was thinking, and why I mentioned picturing myself walking around the apartment a little bit, is your dad, that you said improv, reminded me that seeing him on screen, his presence did remind me of Alan Arkin, who was someone I knew here, and his kids, who has an improv background. But
yeah, I know he did a little bit of theater in college. So
he was with Second City, the original Second City.
Yeah, well, my dad, he.
Your dad.
I know he was in Our Town. They did a version of Our Town, if you know that play.
Yeah.
I don't know what else he did.
It shows that he knew, and he, as a director, a better director is gonna. That might be one of the issues with current mainstream affair, is these directors are hacks and they don't have that experience of acting. But that's a whole other concept.
Well, I mean, I think also like, I know you used the picture of me as George Lucas. It's like there's these directors who are not actors directors. I like to think I'm a decent actors director because I think in terms of, what the actors need in order to do it. Mm-hmm. But, with George Lucas, it was like, we're going to be in, so there's a blue screen and you're looking at the blue screen and there's Jar Jar.
And there's a Wookiee.
Jar Jar is the key to all this.
Yeah.
Because he's a funnier character than we've ever. And then Harrison Ford is just like, hey, George, how do you drive this thing?
Shame on you.
I don't know. You just push things, whatever.
Tweak some knobs. Yeah.
Famously, Harrison Ford said, I said to George, I said, you can type this stuff, but you can't say it.
Yeah. Okay, nerve herder.
Hey, you can't say that word. Only we can say that word.
Oh, right. But what's a Wookiee say?
I think Wookiee says,
hey, that's a good Wookiee.
Yeah, I could do better if it's like, speaking of voice acting, it's like Mark Hamill. Who knew? I mean,
I know. I love Mark Hamill. Speaking of people who are really cool online too with this stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and for those of you who don't know Mark Hamill, famously Luke Skywalker, he was the Joker in Batman the Animated Series. When I first found this out years later, I was like, wait, what? And he's also Fire Lord Ozai in Avatar: The Last Airbender. See how I brought it all back to elements?
And what is that? It just goes, biscuit. There it is.
Exactly. I'm also turning into Jeff Goldblum. And the metaphysical. Yes, the metaphysical biscuit. It's the metaphysical. Yes. That's the way that. Sorry, I'll do impressions all day long. So
yeah, he is an excellent ham in his later years. Goldblum.
Oh yeah, but even back then, I mean, you watch Jurassic Park. He's just like,
Oh, he was
you
great.
stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it, you slapped it on a lunchbox, and now you're selling. You want to sell it. Well, your scientists were so preoccupied with thinking of whether or not they should, they didn't stop and think if they should.
You're good at this.
Yeah, I think I messed up the line, but
No, you were good. Yeah, I actually had read rare case where I'd read the book before the movie, and that was Goldblum, and that character was perfect. That's like one of those instances. That's how I pictured that character. Which is,
yeah, absolutely. I guess I might as well, since I'm doing all my impressions. The probably biggest impression I do all the time is Schwarzenegger. And I actually have a story. I met Schwarzenegger once. And for those of you who don't know, I'm talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnie, yeah.
Yeah, not Bob Schwarzenegger. So I lived in the same area of California where he lived in Los Angeles, and I was a teenager at the time, and we had heard rumors that Terminator 3 was going to come out, if only we knew how terrible it would be.
And then get worse. Sorry.
Yes. And my mom called me. This was before we had cell phones. She called me and said, JT, Arnold Schwarzenegger's here. Get up here. So I, ran up because I was such a big Terminator fan, such a big Arnold fan. And there he was. It's like this big guy, like 6'3". And I look at him, and my mom's says, hey, Arnold, this is my son, JT Curtis. And he was just looking up information about Terminator 3. And he was very, very nice. She's like, Dad, how did you know about Terminator 3? That hasn't come out yet. I don't know. How do you know about that? What did you find out? Tell me what you found out. Do it now.
Do it
He
now.
didn't say all that, but he didn't say that. But, he was very nice. And later on, my parents were checking out the, groceries they had. And Arnold was in the next check stand over. He had 16 protein drinks and nothing else. And then Maria Shriver's wife was there. We'd seen her earlier, but she wasn't next to him. And then out of nowhere, in the middle of this supermarket where there's lots of people, he just yells to the top of his lungs, Maria! And everybody turns around and perfect timing. She comes around the corner, like I'm just going, oh God. But he just has no shame. I was like, come on, Maria. Come on, we have to get to the Hummer. Come on, get over here. Do it now. Okay, again, he didn't say that, but it's just an excuse to do my impression.
It's fun. That's a fun one. You must know of the stories that he ended up later, around probably that period, having to get a coach to sound like Arnie. He didn't sound. Have you heard that?
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah. And he's verified it. He said it's true.
Well, it's interesting because like when he shortly after that he'd run for governor of California. I was living in California when that happened, and just anytime it's like, so we are going to do this for California.
Get out of here.
Because the politicians are not doing their job, so I'm going to crush them with my arms. And this is how we are going to do it in California.
Did he ever say arms for the poor?
Did he ever say? Well, I mean, he was Republican.
No, he wasn't helping them.
Not to alienate any Republicans, but
they don't listen to my show. I'm awful.
Although funny enough,
he's a mild one.
Arnold was actually, when he was governor, he was actually fairly moderate, like somewhat liberal. Like he did a lot of stuff for the environment, stuff like that. So he wasn't too bad.
And he was on record doing all kinds of pretty amusing, making fun of the soon-to-be president again, maybe.
He hates him.
Oh yeah, no, the one where remember he was holding up dolls and talking about the environment. Yeah. Oh, about going back to fossil fuels. It's as dumb as what was the analogy? As going back to, it was something in our world of music, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter if I can't think of it. So JT, first of all, we're getting top of the hour, and you said you have to leave soon. If you see the chat, I just sent you the station ID in a minute if you can. But let them know how to find your stuff if you want.
Sure. Do you want me to read this? Or,
you can do it in a sec. Go ahead and
okay.
Yeah, let them know some details.
Yeah, no. So I am JT Curtis, and thank you so much, Jules, for playing my album Elements. You can find me at jtcurtis.com. History of Rock 2010s is going to be coming out very soon on YouTube. You can get a copy of my album on vinyl if you want. Elements, it's on Bandcamp, or if you go on my Patreon, patreon.com/JT Curtis. I'm assuming you're all writing this down. You'll get a discount, and you can see all my videos commercial free.
They're really funny.
They're extended. And they're what?
Funny. Funny.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
I think I'm
yes.
too far from that. I'm far from the mic you hear. It's confusing to have two mics if you've never done that.
Yes, Jules is a very, very good manager. He's helping me remind everybody what they have to do. But
that's why I get the big bucks for my volunteer community district position.
Yeah. And I play all around New York City for anybody who lives in New York City, or if you live in the New Mexico area and you're going to be visiting New York City, you can look me up.
So you just played too, didn't you? Didn't you just have a gig?
Yes. Yeah, we did a gig at the Shrine. It's this wonderful venue in Harlem. We played some new material. There's a little clip of it on my YouTube channel. We're working on a piece called "Where Did the Music Go?" It's essentially about how evil AI is, and trying, to navigate this brave new world. Speaking of Terminator, it's like, don't people watch movies? Don't they know what's going to happen?
There are so many things. There's one that you said an hour ago that I've been saying lately, like in the last week or two, that you're saying, and it wasn't planned, folks, but that's been one of the things that I've been saying, and not to mention, it's kind of creepy and transparent that it was a big year in Terminator lore. 2020, August 29th, 2024. That was the year the machines went online, and it was happening as the movie said. But I literally have been commenting this week because my buddy Rommel, who used to be a DJ, Steve Rommel, my best buddy, had just shared something like yesterday, probably 2 days ago, about what you just said. By the way, this is 96.9 FM, KMRD-LP, Madrid, New Mexico. Back to that, but that was a legal thing within 3 minutes. But I was saying real quick, what I was saying real quick was that. It was yesterday. Anyway, the meme was about what you just said, except adding that people aren't paying any attention. So all the stuff that's predicted, which is what sci-fi and what makes it great, right? But that all these things, all the way back to Orwell 48, 84, but it's all coming true. As you said, aren't they watching the movies? Not really, I guess.
That's right.
Or they don't
Skynet.
care.
It's coming.
Skynet. Something popped in my head, but if it's gone, it's gone. Oh, not to get heavy again, but since we both have fathers up wherever they go, and to the I wanted to let the listeners know, from the family of Roger Zelazny, whose son, who was a best friend, just passed away. Mid-February is when there's going to be a thing. Some people coming into town, a life celebration of Trent. But Zelazny and Sci-Fi reminded me of that. He's the guy who Argo was based on, who lived here, who's basically the guy. In fact, George blogged about Trent last night, and I shared it between shares about JT Curtis, and it was just like proving, that whatever else, at his core, George is a very good writer. Like the way he was able to verbalize sentiments about our friend, So anyway, segue, but or side thing. So they can catch probably in a week or two, if not to pressure jinx, right, on YouTube.
Well, a week will be the anniversary, so we're definitely trying to aim for that date. So,
in the words of your favorite band, definitely maybe.
Sorry, say that again?
In the words of your favorite band from the 90s that are reuniting, I'm sure you're excited about. Definitely maybe, right? Oasis. Yeah. Sarcasm.
Yes.
We all love Oasis.
I'm a huge Oasis fan. You know what? They do. I think because of Wonderwall, a lot of people just kind of throw them up. They do have some good tunes.
They are not bad. They are not awful.
What's the Story? Morning Glory has some, Champagne Supernova, stuff like that is really good.
It's actually a really good example of the things we were talking about an hour ago, to be honest, with all the genres, of when the money people get involved, it just messes things up. Because
that is true.
And they ran with it, just the way in a more benign way, and obviously they were better, but the Stones and the Beatles they never hated each other. They just ran with that, right?
Yeah, well, they said that the war between them was really made up by the press. They would actually call each other. Mick said, well, I'd call them up and say, "Hey, how are you guys doing?" It's like, "Oh, we're ready to release our single." He says, "Okay, well, we'll push back like a few weeks so that we don't compete."
Hey, guys.
And I think, I think that's why the Beatles and I think that's why the Stones stayed, like they had the staying power. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the Dave Clark Five, they were just as big as the Beatles." I'm like, yeah, but they didn't have the staying power. The Rolling Stones were always there. They kept going and going and going, and
Still
they got
are.
better. Like I would actually say, like when the Beatles broke up, that's when they started doing their best albums: Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, Goat's Head Soup, which I think is a very underrated album. But anyway,
but when you were doing the middle hand,
yeah.
I was gonna joke, camera bump.
Oh yes,
But in this case, now we're doing it. And Metaphysical Biscuit reminder from an hour and a half ago or whatever was that Goat's Head Soup is actually the deluxe edition of the Stones I got because I think that album is fantastic.
It's a great album.
You know,
Really good album.
I obviously did. I've been staring at my notes and asking you all these questions because we had nothing to talk about, as I knew. Again, sarcasm. But one thing that maybe it'll be the last roughly thing is because I don't know the answer to this necessarily is the theory, whatever it's called, that I heard recently again. I would imagine you've heard this said by people that period that you were just talking about, and a little earlier, but late 60s, 70s, the Beggars Bank, that period is when the Stones were the best American band. Have you ever heard that said?
Interesting. Well, interesting to say the American band, considering they weren't, but
Right.
But I
That's
know what
the
you
joke.
mean.
That's
Yeah.
not me. That's
No, but because Keith was, he was. Oh my God, why am I forgetting the country guy he was really, really into at that time?
Waylon Jennings or Bob Wills. Or no,
No, it wasn't Waylon Jennings, Bob Wills. It was.
it wasn't them.
I can't remember. And I think he actually learned to play open G from him.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I know who you mean, but I can't.
Yeah, I can't remember. But anyway, I probably actually should be logging off pretty soon.
Okay,
So,
I want to keep you. But we can make fun of
yeah.
Mick because he says Waylon Jennings.
Yeah.
Well, JT, thank you. So they can't see your Beatles George Harrison thing, right? That's done. But they can.
Well, I mean, every once in a while, like I get called to do a Beatles show, so if it happens, it might happen. If it doesn't happen,
and you get to be the best Beatles. So come on.
But I have a series on YouTube where I talk about all of George Harrison's solo albums that you can watch.
Yeah, and it's good. And I agree with your rankings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All things must pass. I mean, come on. And the anniversary currently it was just re-released of Material World is the other. Right?
Yeah. Which I think is a great album. I think it's a really good album. Yeah.
Actually, that was another thing. If you have 3 seconds if you have any thoughts on, I feel things I've said about that I was writing you about remastered. I'm pointing at your record, but that when not that we need is every Zeppelin redone, but when Jimmy Page is alive and he's doing it, it's not just for money. And certainly the Harrison family, the Petty family, when they re-release something, there's a reason and it's good. And I actually kind of think in some ways, I don't like superlatives and adjectives, but there's something that's working really well. I haven't even got my copy yet with what I've heard of the 50th living in Material World that's catching me in a way that the album never had. That's what I was getting at. Have you had any, it's new, I don't know. Have you had any reactions like that of your own to it?
I mean, I still have my vinyl copy. I'm not really one for a lot of reissues. I sort of feel like, what, I have the record already. Do I need to buy it again? If there's something I want to listen to, it's probably, on streaming or something like that.
Unless you can get, as I'm not going to take this record off because I'm going to play the last song, unless you can get the beautiful JT, this is my promotional shtick here for you, unless you can get a copy of something as great as Elements with the beautiful sign, not to mention, they can still get a signed copy?
Yep. If you, whether you go on Bandcamp or you go through Patreon or you just send me a message, say, hey, can I get a copy? And maybe I'll have you do it through Zelle or something because they don't take a piece of the pay like a Bandcamp does. But yeah, I sign them if you want, or if you don't want me to sign them, that's cool too. I won't feel bad about it. I mean, I might a little, but
nah, send it to me.
kidding.
Especially since I messed this one up. But that's not signed. But, and I don't know that I messed it up. I was gonna joke if they mention that they heard you on KMRD or Metaphysical Visit through Jules, maybe they'll get a goldfish with the copy.
There you go. Yes, I said yes. If email me if you want some goldfish. Post a comment in this web zone, and I'll send you some goldfish over an email.
It can happen.
That's right. Thank you so much, Jules. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so they can look for your YouTube for the History of Rock, the 10th anniversary, and they can rewatch on your YouTube and the album, and I think we've covered it. So thank you. Can you do that station ID, identify yourself and read that?
Sure. This is JT Curtis from Broadway's Let It Be and the History of Rock and Roll, and this is 96.9 FM KMRD-LP in Madrid, New Mexico.
True, and I'm gonna hit, I'll hit play on this record and then say bye to you. Do you have enough time for that?
Yeah. Which one do you want to play? I think we got 2 tracks left.
If I hit start, it's gonna play the track that it was about to play because I just stopped it.
Oh.
Is that okay?
Oh, go. Yeah, that's a song called Home Last Stand.
All right. Thank you. And thank you again, JT. Any last words for them? Don't have to be.
Why is the sky blue?
Because it's purple.
Ah, that makes sense.
That's terrible improv. The joke about the store's closed. It has to be open if we're going to do the improv.
I'll give you one more for the road. I was going to a convenience store that said open 24 hours and it was closed. And the guy was closing it up and he was leaving. He's like, hey, what's the deal? I thought it was open 24 hours. He goes, well, not in a row.
I have a full-scale map of the whole world. 1 mile equals 1 mile. I'm having a hard time folding it. Those are both Stephen Wright lines. You were
Yes, love me some Stephen Wright.
Oh, he was great. Mitch Hedberg, did you catch him? In our era, he was like the Stephen. Okay, you need to go. So, folks, again, thank you. Check out JT Curtis. We're gonna hear this track, and then I'll say bye to you, JT. So let's get the track. Let's see here. There we go.